What 100% fact is the hardest to believe?
Tarantulas keep tiny frogs as pets. That only 6 people have survived rabies. Rabies has a 99% mortality rate. You can have rabies for an entire year without symptoms, and once you have symptoms, it's already late. You'll probably die in a couple of days if you have symptoms.
More than a year, it can lay dormant for several years. You go on a camping trip and wake up noting you have a scratch on your arm. You put a band-aid on and think no more about it. A couple of years later you feel unwell. You're already dead, there's nothing to save you. Rabies is terrifying.
There is enough water in Lake Superior to cover North and South America in water 1 foot deep.
They don't call it Lake Inferior.
Dragonflies accelerate at up to 4G and corner at up to 9G.
Dragonflies are also the most efficient hunter, catching up to 95% of prey. The Australian funnel web spider is often regarded as the world's deadliest and hasn't had a confirmed kill in over 40 years since the antivenom was created.
No trace, no witnesses. We call that a professional.
President Jimmy Carter rappelled into a nuclear reactor that was in partial meltdown to stop the meltdown and save Ottawa. Before he became president, of course.
1/6 of the world's living languages are only spoken in New Guinea. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler robbed 2 banks at gunpoint. He was arrested mere hours later because he didn't wear a mask. Instead, he decided to coat his face in lemon juice because he read that lemon juice can be used to make invisible ink. His logic was that it would make his face invisible. And reportedly, he said to one of the tellers, "Don't worry, I have a face, it's just invisible." The only thing he did when he was arrested was sigh dejectedly and say, "But I wore the juice." His case is actually still in academic journals regarding the fact that people with low intelligence do in fact believe that they're smarter than everyone else. ETA, this man was 45 effing years old. From the time it was discovered to the time it lost its status as a planet, Pluto made it less than a third of the way around the Sun.
He's doing his best.
That a spy named Joan Pujol Garcia was awarded the highest honor of service from both the Allies and Axis in the Second World War.
I play both sides, so I always come out on top.
2/3 of Canada's population lives south of Seattle. Edit. Here's a visual link.
In fact, Toronto is further south than Portland.
105 billion people have lived so far. 7.9 billion of us are currently alive.
You're telling me 7% of our species in all of history is alive today? I need a moment.
Oxford University is older than the Aztec Empire.
There are more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way. Roughly by a factor of 10.
What?
Tsutomu Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip, and on the day he was supposed to leave, the atomic bomb dropped. He survived with minor injuries and returned to his home in Nagasaki, where he went to work 3 days later. As he was describing his experience to his supervisor, the second bomb was dropped and he survived without any injuries. He ended up living into his 90s.
My favorite detail about this story is that he took the train from Hiroshima to Nagasaki. Trains were still running in the aftermath of a nuclear strike. Ciabatta bread was invented in 1982. Link. It's advertised and perceived as this traditional, rustic Italian bread that peasants must have enjoyed, but nope, created in the 1980s.
I for one can't believe we were still making new kinds of bread 40 years ago. You'd think we would have figured out all the ways to make bread by now. A moose can dive underwater down to nearly 20 feet in search of food.
An orca is a natural predator of the moose because of this.
Dinosaurs are older than grass. Every artist rendition you've seen of them roaming fields is wrong. Most ground-level plants were ferns or flowering bushes, not grass.
When I see ferns I instantly think of dinosaurs, so I must have seen the good renditions when I was a kid.
Clouds weigh hundreds of thousands of pounds, full of water, effortlessly floating above our heads. No support, no structure, just weight, floating around above us, and we're like, yep, totally believable, because they're clouds, duh.
I would love to understand more about this. Never even crossed my mind, but that seems pretty amazing now that I think about it.
The loudest sound in recorded history was the Krakatoa volcanic eruption of 1883. It ruptured the eardrums of people more than 40 miles from the epicenter, created a sound wave that circled the globe 7 times, and could be heard all the way in New York City, a short 10,000 miles away.
I still do not understand how this is possible. And how we haven't been able to hear something similar since.
For 60 million years, there was no bacteria, fungus, anything to decompose trees. They just got crushed under the weight of other dead trees. This is where about 90% of coal comes from.
Also petrified wood as well.
It took humans more time to go from bronze swords to steel swords than steel swords to nuclear bombs.
Proving how much more effective steel swords are.
There are only 25 blimps in the entire world.
Also only 131 Zeppelins ever made. 9 of those were never finished. The Hindenburg was the 129th.
The US has a £1.4 billion cheese surplus. It's all stored in the cheese cave. Link. Edit. Okay, I think if we can harness the energy of the people who stormed Area 51, we could easily liberate the cheese.
What's the security like? This has the makings of a great zombie apocalypse base.
Chainsaws were invented for childbirth and were hand-cranked.
I could have happily gone the rest of my life without knowing this.
The circulatory system, arteries, veins, and capillaries, is more than 60,000 miles long.
Fun fact: if you took your intestines and laid them end to end, you would die.
Mammoths were alive when the Great Pyramid was being built.
We are closer historically to Cleopatra than she was to the Great Pyramid.
Nintendo was founded the same year Hitler was born, 1889.
The leading cause of death for pregnant women is murder.
Also leading cause of death for women at work is murder.
I'm still in awe that mantis shrimp can punch with the force of a .22 caliber bullet.
People keep them in saltwater aquariums, sometimes they hitchhike into a tank in the rock. Either way, they call them thumb splitters.
Sharks are older than the rings of Saturn.
Sharks are also older than trees.
The Library of Congress has sex tape audio of JFK.
I am going to shoot my hot man chowder. Rest in peace, Jack.
A man, Mitchell Lodito, ate an entire airplane. It took him 2 years.
Wait, so he literally ate scrap metal?
Metal, glass, leather. You name it. There are more libraries in the US than McDonald's or Starbucks.
We should use and appreciate them more. The libraries, not the chains. Edit. I'm getting a lot of replies maligning homeless people and I just want y'all to know I'm not here for that. Take your disdain for your fellow humans elsewhere. I'll be here fighting for a better system for everyone.
Häagen-Dazs has no meaning in any language, it was meant to sound European. It was started by Reuben Mattis, a Polish immigrant to New York who sold fruit ice and ice cream from a horse-drawn cart.
10th U.S. President John Tyler has a living grandson. The state of Wyoming only has 2 escalators.
MLK and Anne Frank were both born in the same year but we associate them with different time periods. Edit. Removed vastly cause people were being sticklers about semantics.
Barbara Walters was born the same year as them as well. Really puts it into perspective seeing someone their age still living and how World War II and the Civil Rights Movement really weren't that long ago.
6969 Cool Street, WD Sport NY is actually a real address.
There is more debt than money in the world.
It's simpler than most people think too. Sally loans Joe $10, Joe turns around and loans that $10 to Bob, and Bob then loans it to Billy. There's still only $10 in the system, but $30 of debt.
The closest U.S. state to Africa is Maine. The entirety of continental South America is further east than Detroit, Michigan.
There are 169 octillion 518 septillion 829 sextillion 100 quintillion 544 quadrillion. Approximately 1.70 x 10 to the power of 29. Ways to play the first 10 moves in chess. Additionally, the number of distinct 40-move games in chess is far greater than the number of electrons in the observable universe.
One that was mind-boggling for me was that up to 150 species of animals go extinct every day.
In line with that, 11,000 sharks are killed by humans every hour. Had to look that one up to believe it myself.
If there's 23 people in a room, there's a 50% chance to share the same birthday.
Eyeball and vag are self-cleaning.
Well, I'm certainly not going to ask anyone else to do it.
The reason there are so few mummies left is because back in the Victorian era, they ate most of them. Link.
That I used to be nothing more than two separate cells in two other humans' bodies.
There's less time between Lincoln's second inauguration and Joe Biden's birth than there is between Biden's birth and his own inauguration. When Harriet Tubman was born, Thomas Jefferson was still alive. When she died, Ronald Reagan had already been born. Time is short.
And the USA is very young.
98% of everything is hydrogen and helium.
The Inca invented brain surgery. They were able to remove parts of the brain successfully.
Wade Boggs drank 50 beers on a cross-country flight and then absolutely destroyed the Seattle Mariners the next day. 100% of your direct genetic ancestors lived long enough to successfully reproduce.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.